So, what do you want to be when you grow up?
There's no shortage of internet cliches telling you to just be yourself. But that raises, um, just a couple of questions. Who are you?
And what if you don't like it? Ooh.
Society gives you two options. Either be the person everyone else expects you to be and therefore perform for society, or be authentic, whatever that means. But there is a third option that no one seems to talk about. It is harder, but it will make you a work of art. From a young age, you were already rushed to become something. By the time you finished high school, you were asked to make a permanent career decision as though it's a one time decision and you're supposed to do it right or not. And that's how adulthood rolls in. Like being put in a blender, you know? You emerge 20 years later, dizzy, confused, with a ton of debt, a slower metabolism, and you're scratching your head and wondering, where did the last 20 years go? And can I please go back to when I used to be so hot? God, I was so hot. There's a collective unspoken agreement in all societies and cultures that we all have a stage persona, a persona that we wear in public, the one that society deems acceptable and appropriate, and a backstage persona, supposedly our authentic self, so to speak, the one that we show with a couple of people that we trust or when we're all alone and nobody is looking, because, we can't hold the mask forever. And we spend our lives trying to manage the perception of this persona through the ways that we speak and how we dress and what we do for a living and who we hang out with. And soon we don't even have private hobbies anymore because if you don't have an audience, is it even worth it? For this game to hold up, though, we have to all play along. Like, I'll pretend you are who you say you are through those signals if you also pretend and play along and affirm I am who I say I am. Of course, the truth always leaks through in subtle ways, but we will all politely pretend we didn't notice. And I used to think that authenticity was about annihilating the stage personas, right? To bring my backstage persona to the front, to stop hiding my authentic self. And boy, was I wrong. First of all, how does it go again? Oh, yeah. To even function in societies, we need personas. Personas help us fulfill our social roles, our friend, parent, teacher. They help us create a script for these roles, a code of conduct, if you will. I mean, imagine what it would be like if you walked into a doctor's office and there was no script for how the doctor and the patient were supposed to behave around each other. And they showed up I don't know, in pajamas and they're telling you about their personal problems, and there's no plan for how you're both supposed to act, and so it just doesn't work. Imagine a society that's trying to run without these personas that are attached to these various roles. Doesn't work. Personas also help us figure out how much of ourselves we're supposed to share with people. They protect us, so they protect our psyche in the same way that clothing protects the body. I mean, I know you want to be naked all the time, Susan, but trust me, sometimes you want to cover yourself. So, unless you plan to sit in a lotus position on the top of a mountain all by yourself for the rest of your life, there's no escaping this front stage versus backstage division. You're always going to need some sort of mask for social interactions. Here's what most people don't realize: the backstage persona, the person you are when you're all alone, when nobody is looking, is not even the real you. Not the complete one, at least. This video is teasing an identity crisis, but bear with me. I promise it gets good. Okay. This is heavy duty stuff. Am I still here? Yes, I am. I still exist. Okay. Let me try to orient myself. Is it orient or orientate in this situation? I don't know. So, underneath your backstage, it's a little blurry, your supposed authentic self, there is a basement. And in that basement, you have your darkest shadows. These exist as multiple characters. Each one of them has their own personality with their own strengths and weaknesses, and each one of them is fighting or competing for the driver's seat in your life. These shadow characters hold the parts of us that we deem so unlovable that we won't even face them even when we're alone. But these aren't bad parts. They're not supposed to be fixed or healed. Like I used to think you're supposed to heal those parts. They're actually stunted parts of your childhood. Capsules of your childhood genius. The parts of you that you felt were too much, too weird, too intense, so you learn to hide them. Your innate genius is in these capsules. They hold the strengths that you haven't given the space to perform on the public stage. The one where you're supposed to show up in public. They're supposed to play a role here, but instead you keep them tucked in here, and that's the whole problem. But your stage personas, the ones that you show in public, they're not random. They are actually defensive formations. They emerge from these shadows. When you don't give these shadows the space to play here consciously, they leak unconsciously and they're not pretty. But when you give them the space, when you make them conscious, you free the creative genius. And that's why Charles Baudelaire said that genius is nothing more nor less than childhood recaptured at will. Dr. Stuffy here is going to help us understand this. Dr. Stuffy? Yeah, it's Dr. Stuffy, PhD. Consider, if you will, an individual who harbors within himself a profound anxiety regarding his intellectual capabilities. Consequently, his public stage persona would engage in compensatory behavior, such as gratuitously complex terminology or an insufferably pompous demeanor that broadcasts,
I possess considerable intellectual prowess.
The very fact that this person is endeavoring with such effort to project intelligence betrays their sense of inadequacy, their very shadow, which tragically and ironically casts a shadow upon their true self, thus muddying their innate genius. In other words, the Tao that can be virtue signaled is not the eternal Tao.
Thank you, Dr. Stuffy.
It's Dr. Stuffy, PhD. We all have at some point unconsciously had an identity that was based on a script, whether it's a job title or a trending personality archetype that we thought was really cool or something. We looked for other people to affirm who we are. We didn't know who we're supposed to be for ourselves, so we tried to be something for everybody else. But this is never satisfying because deep down, we all know that we are a one of one. Not a one in a million, but one of one. Really let that sink in. We know that it's our life's work to discover and refine this unique expression. And yet very few of us have the courage to do it because everybody wants to be unique, but not so unique that others don't get it. The exception to this is a person who went down the path of dissolving their persona. This can happen for many reasons, like a spiritual experience or trauma and crisis or a process of individuation. When a persona breaks down, most people scramble to replace the persona as quickly as possible. But some people just choose to let it go. This is especially true for people who have had a spiritual experience. They can convince themselves innocently that just because they've seen the light, there's no need for this game now.
I'm drained by business performance. I'm drained by having a job. I'm drained by performing something for society. I'm drained by pretending to care about any of it. It's all meaningless. I don't care about the title. I don't care about competing against anyone. But I have to be part of this because I have to pay the bills and survive. I feel trapped. This is exhausting.
Without a persona, the person who has had a spiritual awakening, for lack of better words, may start to struggle with everyday life. Notions like working to pay the bills or general life maintenance become really too difficult to bear. Without this ambition and drive to achieve more, with the feeling that everything is complete and there's nothing else to do, they may start to drift. They start to feel lost in their visions and intense feelings. The subconscious floods in and they have no way to organize it. So They may start to question their sanity, but their inner spiritual world is the only thing that makes sense, so they never want to leave it. But as much as we may long to escape this performance, reality pulls us back. Living in society means we can't just abandon our roles. There's no way to get the benefits and the perks of being part of society and to completely opt out of the baggage that comes with it. You want to have a casual relationship with society, but she wants to move in and have kids with you. So if we are supposed to be social creatures, and having this persona is not a bug, but is a feature of social roleplay, then how are we supposed to navigate all this without selling our souls? So I keep coming back to this idea. What if authenticity is not about canceling these stage personas, but about playing them deliberately? And I know this next point is uncomfortable, but hear me out. What if we are supposed to fool each other? Not to defraud, not to deceive, not to gain some unfair advantage, but to create a sense of beauty and awe and delight in a world that is otherwise harsh and ugly and meaningless? What if being authentic is not at odds with performing? What if it's rather about your awareness of that performance and the intention behind it? When we do this right, we take our hidden characters, our basement shadow characters, if you will, and we transmute them into art. As Nietzsche said, to give style to one's character is a great and rare art, practiced by those who survey all the strengths and weaknesses of their nature and then fit them into an artistic plan until every one of them appears as art, and even weaknesses delight the eye. As Picasso said, everybody is born an artist, and the deepest desire of the artist is to express their soul, to turn the inner into an outer expression. Because few things in life are as satisfying as looking at yourself in a mirror, and I don't mean just your physical appearance, I mean realizing the person that you have become is a person that you have crafted. You didn't end there by chance. You thought about it, you planned it, you created it, you executed it. This is your vision, and it turned into reality. This is called self-artistry. One way to do this is to view yourself, and by consequence your entire life, as your greatest artistic project. So you don't just find yourself, although you do, but you also craft yourself. You create yourself using raw materials that you've chosen intentionally. Nietzsche says also, let the youthful soul look back on life with the question, what have you truly loved up to now? What has elevated your soul? What has mastered it and at the same time delighted it? You are the creative director of your own movie titled Your Life. You choose the actors and the set. You craft the actor's personality, the appearance, the demeanor. You choose the setting, the objects and the scene. All of this to tell a story to entertain yourself. You as the audience. Instead of trying to hide your shadow characters or trying to heal them, you give them space to play on your public stage. And when you do that, you indirectly heal. Every artist I admire has done this. And today I wanted to talk about Dita Von Teese, because I think she perfected this art. I mean, Dita could have been just another stripper, but she wasn't. Not because stripping was shameful to her, but because she wasn't going to let it stop her from being an artist. She rejected the popular stripper archetype that was handed to her in the 90s, what was selling in those days. And instead, she brought elements from burlesque. Back in the 1700s, burlesque used to be this satirical parody, so she didn't take herself too seriously. Think about the way strippers presented back in those days. They took their sexuality and their sexual appeal way too seriously, but Dita shows up with this making fun of her own act, and bringing elements from early 20th century and the 1700s. And so you're talking about a span of at least 200 years, right? And bringing all of these things together. And she says her goal was to change how people viewed stripping, and she certainly changed my mind about it. I used to think that stripping is something women did out of obligation all the time, and while that's certainly still the case, that was not the case for Dita, because she didn't do it out of desperation. Dita did it out of devotion. What sets Dita apart, I think, is the fact that she's not just performing for an audience. I mean, she's performing for life. This is who she is when nobody is looking. And this level of commitment to her act is what I find most awe-inspiring about her. Dita didn't invent a character from scratch. She didn't copy some pre-packaged pinup template. Instead, she found elements that she was genuinely interested in. So, eras that are spanning from 18th to early 20th century, but also mixing them with aesthetics like retro pinup, retro futuristic, design movements like the Victorian and Art Deco, lighting methods and palettes that are dramatic and high contrast like chiaroscuro, along with hobbies like vintage fashion, makeup, photography, performance art, burlesque, stripping, blending and processing all of these elements and more through her own unique lens and filter, thus creating a cohesive one of one. There are many pinup impersonators, but there's no one like Dita Von Teese. Dita turned this into a personal brand and she built a multi-million-dollar business empire from this. Now, this wasn't the result of a one-time quiz on the internet, which Goddess Are You, or some branding agency telling her who she should be for a trending market. This was a lifetime of patient introspection and creating herself with intention. And in doing that, Dita made herself and her entire life her greatest work of art. It's not about her shows, it's not about her stripping, it's not about her products, it's all of it together existing on a frequency, on a certain vibe, for lack of better words, a certain energy that people who resonate with it will want to pay attention. And of course, there are people who buy her stuff straight up because of the products that she offers. People buy for different reasons, and Dita understood this, but she didn't contort herself to fit into what other people wanted. Instead, she found what was really, really true for her, and this is something she can maintain for the rest of her life and effortlessly attract different kinds of people to buy different kinds of things that are all centered around this thing that is ethereal and difficult to define with words. Self-artistry doesn't have to be in the context of business, but I want to show you how it can be, because a lot of people who are inclined to focus on art and philosophy and spirituality and creativity and creation and the inner world find business and marketing and branding too dry, but there is a way to make it an art. And Dita is a great example of that. Okay, so this is what we see when we look at Dita, right? But what we don't see is the amount of inner work that went into it. Because this kind of self-creation is not possible with inner work, and is not possible without solitude, especially. All true artistry begins with solitude, far away from other people's noise and expectations. Dita created a very theatrical persona, but this was not about the visuals. Dita's visuals were the expression of the inner process. No one can do what Dita did without having faced their shadows. So let's talk about how. I cannot stress how important it is that this cannot be done for other people. You are both the performer and the audience, the subject and the object. And look, I'm not speaking as somebody who... I don't know what's going on with the light and why it's flickering so much, but I'm just gonna keep going. And look, I'm not speaking as somebody who has completed doing this and I'm sitting on the mountaintop and I'm explaining to you how to do it. I'm walking this path too. I think this is a journey of a lifetime. I don't know what's going on with the light. I don't care. But to start on your own path, you need to reclaim your position as the observer, as the director of the set, rather than a character that's lost in the movie, or worse yet, forgetting that you are in a movie in the first place. So take account of the characters in your basement. Notice what kind of characters do you try to project to other people? And why? What are you ashamed of? What are you afraid to admit, even to yourself sometimes? What are you trying so hard to hide? Then accept that these characters exist and invite them for some intentional play. There, lighting problem fixed. For example, if you're like Dr. Stuffy, PhD, and you realize there's part of you that's always so focused on appearing smart that you neglect actually becoming smarter, then you can look at this character and instead of judging it or denying it, you can see that it has strengths and weaknesses. Maybe you notice that this character does have a sharp mind and curiosity, but also on the flip side, they may be someone who expects things to come too easy, or rather gets discouraged very quickly when they don't see results. Once you see that, you can acknowledge this character's strengths, what they're trying really hard to project to other people, acknowledge that it is intelligent so that it stops trying to fulfill this need and this recognition from the outside, and add what's missing to address weaknesses, like patience when growth is slow or compassion when things get difficult. You might even like some of this character's flaws, like their overconfidence that's just compensation and that's bordering on arrogance. You might find that refreshing, and you can own it, but own it with playfulness, own it with self-awareness. You might even want to exaggerate it for dramatic effect. Remember to have fun with this. This is the whole point. You are the audience and the performer. You are the subject and the object. Remember that. This process is about learning to trust yourself and learning to trust your own taste, developing your own taste, which requires comfort with solitude. The problem isn't that you have a mask. The problem is that you have no space to step away from the current mask that you're wearing. We're all expected to play the same roles every single day. Everybody knows you as this character, so you have to stay consistent, or you think you have to stay consistent. And when you do, there's no space for radical change, no room for something completely new to emerge. Everything you experiment with feels like it has to be within the same zip code as the person you have always been. I realized this when I was traveling alone. I spent a few years traveling solo, and I realized how easy it was for me to become a different person when nobody knew me. All of a sudden, I could become more confident, I could become happier, I could become more fun, I could become anything. The minute I started to be known in some way, or when I went back to the US, the minute I started to develop relationships and people knew who I was and I was supposed to be consistent with the person I had been yesterday and the day before, the mask would immediately start to calcify again. Our self-image and our identity are so often dependent on the gaze of other people. Relationships become our trap. Hell really is other people, as Sartre said. So here's some practical advice, because I want to help you and help myself work around this without having to leave society altogether. I make sure I spend time alone regularly, and I mean every single day, as much time as I can, and at least a few hours back to back on the weekends. Usually it's Sundays, Sunday mornings. I will spend several hours alone in complete silence, either completely immersed in creating something that puts me in a state of flow, like this video is an example of that. I'm not doing it for an outcome other than exploring something that's meaningful to me, or completely all alone in silence, in nature, locking the room. It doesn't matter, as long as just doing nothing. So flow and nothingness, flow and emptiness, away from people, away from the rehearsal of the characters that we have been in the past. We need these pockets of solitude and silence to listen to what wants to be created through us. Because it's not enough to be alone. You can be alone, but immersed in thinking about the past, or worrying about the future, or thinking about other people and what they want and worries and whatnot. And silence is what reveals what wants to be created authentically. And then once you have that spark, once you have that clarity, you need to get yourself engaged in this authentic creation. Don't keep it here. Engage with it in the physical world. Authentic creativity, I mean, the act of wrestling with something that genuinely interests you, is the best way I know to know yourself. It helps you meet your basement shadows. It helps you develop your own voice and the courage to express it. The idea that the creation reveals the creator is very true here. Plus, this puts you in a state of flow which feels like nothing else, if you ask me, other than, of course, marveling at the masterpiece that you have become. And this is what I mean with self-artistry. People like Dita, or Nietzsche, or Aristotle, or many others did not just try to discover their authentic selves. They crafted them. They first opted for solitude. They walked away from the path that was prescribed to them. They had the courage to sit alone and to go to the basement, to look at their characters, and to give them space to play consciously They took the raw materials, their shadows, their interests, their curiosities, their fears, their doubts, their beauty, their pain, their desires, and arranged everything deliberately to create art, wisdom, beauty, and meaning. And we get to benefit. The whole species gets to benefit when a person does that. So their creations revealed their souls. They were their own magnum opus. So yes, at the risk of sounding like another internet cliche, be yourself, but treat it as a stepping stone towards actually creating yourself. Or as Dr. Stuffy PhD would put it, endeavor to sublimate your existence into the pursuit of self. Or don't, none of it matters. Just kidding, sort of. If you know how many times I re-recorded this one piece, okay? If you enjoyed this video, I would love for you to join my newsletters because, first of all, that's where I let you know whenever I drop a video, and I don't really work on a schedule. With these videos, it's not a 10 a.m. every Saturday type of thing. It's more of a, I'm thinking about something and it's percolating and I don't know what the heck is going on with the light, and I work on it. It's done when it's done. So if you want to know when the next video drops, I'm already working on the next one, just so you know. But if you want to know when it drops, the best place is the newsletters. Plus, I'll let you know when I go live, and that's where we can hang out. You can ask me anything, existential questions, marketing questions, anything goes. Plus, I will send you some tools right now in the meantime to help you express your weird in everything you create. I'll see you next time.